sont dits partout.
What day is this? What time is it? Yeah, it's a little bit my fault. who you who you vote for is who you're gonna vote for with your ballots in my hands. Don't worry, I'm not making sure your dead cat from 20 years ago is mailing in a ballot for Joe Biden or whoever you don't want to vote for. Oh yeah, that too. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing about that because I've been getting so many questions about about people are freaking out about the post office and ballots and all that stuff. All of a sudden, here's where the problem is. It's not the post office that's throwing out ballots. What's happening is you have, and I have no idea why this is even legal to begin with, but you have people that go door to door that are representatives of the RNC or DNC or your local versions of that, and they're going door to door collecting people's mail-in ballots. It's like, oh, I'll mail it for you. All you had to do is just fill it out, and then I'll just mail it for you. Well, the reality is that those are the people that are throwing them away or altering them, and the fact that someone is allowed to do that, that's not an mailman or whatever, that to me seems very fishy, and why anyone would hand over their ballot for any sort of election to somebody, some random person that is not an official poller at a polling site or a mail carrier. That you're an idiot if you're doing that, for one, and a two, that should be illegal. Yeah. Well, and here's the crazy thing is because the thing is, like, yes, should there be mail-in voting? Sure. Should it be the only way to vote? Hell no. There should, it's each state should have its own way that they want to do it. I mean, that's how it was designed to be. Um, and the fact that all of a sudden, because now there's all this love for the post office, but it's seemingly all coming from the left, which makes me always like really like um and it's like, listen, obviously I'm a little biased. I like the post office, A, because I work there, and I want to I want to have a job for one. I think we do a pretty damn good job for one. But yeah, there's a lot of strings being manipulated, with us, and I think we are, it would not surprise me if there were nefarious pieces that, whether it's because they just don't like, Trump, or the Republicans or whatever. And there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's a lot of lefties in the post office. There is, but it wouldn't surprise me if, like, this is their way of, like, as a backlash against, the president, and how, he's wanting us to, you know to get a better deal, for things. And I don't know. It's just, it's so frustrating. It really is. And you know why those locks are on there? It's because people steal mail. Well, yeah. Well, the office that I specifically work for, that's your post office, Andy. We, unfortunately, we have a high, homeless, problem over in that area. We also have a lot of meth heads, and what they're doing, yeah, unfortunately, what they're doing is they're fashioning these, like these lures, or whatever. Like, they have these, those, rat traps or fly traps that are really sticky, and they're attaching these weights to them, and fishing, in kind of this fishing line, and they're throwing it down into the mailbox, and they're trying to fish out checks, and, like, other sensitive mail that they can, either get money out of, or potentially steal people's identity. And so we've actually had to go around and locking these boxes after a certain, after, like, the cutoff time. Like, for us, it's 5 o'clock. That's the last, um, time to get your mail in for the next, for that day. And you're an idiot if you do that nowadays. Yeah, but yeah, well, like anything too is, yeah. Well, and the unfortunate, exactly. And the unfortunate part too is, and I've said this time and time again, when you hear things going too much in one direction, it always, raises my antennas as, like, something's not quite right here. And usually it's like this, the story that everyone's talking about, the story that's always being shown, isn't really always the story, or it's not the truth, or the full truth, or the truth in general. And that's kind of like what I'm thinking about here is, it just, I don't know, it's just very frustrating. But am I in, do I think that we should always have mail in, only mail in ballots, just because of, especially now because everyone's concerned about the virus and all this stuff, and it just all this stuff seems to be coming together just right about the right time, right? We have the pandemic, the shutdowns. Oh, we can't go out to vote, so we have to have mail-in voting, only mail-in voting. We can't actually have polls open, and ballots are mysteriously disappearing. It just yeah. Oh yeah, praise be unto Dr. Fauci. It's just Andy, it's so frustrating. What's gonna happen is that the post office, which is it's good that we have competition. Nowadays, you know the I don't know if it's a secret or anything, but all of the shipping companies, UPS, FedEx, DHL, and then us, we all kind of work together in a lot of ways because there's so much shit that's being shipped. We none of us can keep up, and so we're all relying on each other to get all these packages out, all these letters out, and it's what's going to happen is I think they're going to make the post office a scapegoat in some ways, and I don't know if it's going to be the end of us or what, but I don't think it will. But it's just the story that we're hearing, and all this now all this love and concern for the post office, it's all bullshit. These people don't give a shit about the post office. Like the people that are actually like trying to cut some of the fat off and make us a little bit more streamlined, I'm all for it. Honestly, there's a lot of people that work for us that it's like they don't care. It's like it's either time for them to retire. Yeah. I mean, and there is some truth to that, but the thing is, we are in a service industry. We have customers, and to keep those customers, we have to keep delivering. We can't fail. And the problem is we have a lot of people. It's like the the like in the colleges, like the dean of the inclusion. We have a bunch of people like that where it's just like, why is this person here? This is not a job. This is just someone that is stealing money from our company, and we don't need them. Right? We need new trucks. Those postal carriers, they're dying in there, especially like in this heat wave that we're in. It's 120 degrees. They have no air conditioning in those trucks, and they are fucking hot. Those trucks were around in the 70s, dude. Like they've been around forever. God, don't remind me. Yeah, yeah, and like I said, the problem is we have too many that are exactly, and we don't need all those people. I'm not saying that we don't have we don't need any of them, but there's a lot of them where it's like we really don't need this person. That they don't contribute, and we have a lot of people that do work for the post office that honestly they don't contribute either. Even like people in the trenches. Like there's a lot. I'm there's a lot of people like yeah that just they don't work, and it's you gotta it's you can't be here like especially nowadays. There's so much work to be done. uh, the people saying that, oh, there's nothing to do, I'm bored, I'm gonna go home early, it's like are you fucking kidding me? Like i I've been busting my ass since, I mean, I was already doing that, but when this thing hit, like we've been our our package numbers have doubled, at least doubled on normal days. And if you're saying we're working 10 to 12 hour days a lot of times, and it's if you're saying you're bored, you're not working hard enough. I didn't mean to go into a rant about the like about my job and everything. And I'm all for that. Yeah, we're gonna go on vacation, and we're so. And the crazy thing is though, we're caught in this weird like middle ground too, is being the post office, because we don't in the past it was a full on part of the executive branch of the government. That's and we a lot of our revenue uh, did come from taxpayer funds. So it's essentially another government organization. We still are part of the government. True, we're still part of the executive branch. I had to, same as I did when I would join the Navy. I had to take a the oath and all that stuff to uphold the Constitution and all that good stuff. But the reality is, we no longer take in taxpayer funds, and the funding that kind of supports my paycheck is the what we generate on a daily basis. It's just like we're like this public slash private entity. um and but I think like where a lot of Yeah, but I think where a lot of those where the government funding goes, unfortunately, it's where it should be into like the infrastructure of the actual company, like better trucks, newer technology, like that stuff that like we I think rely as far as like getting stuff from the government that is supposed to be something that they do. Um, and I'll honestly like a lot of that other money goes to a lot of the kind of bureaucratic, no, do nothings that work in the post office. Unfortunately, so it's frustrating, and I feel like I'm always in this seesaw. I've been asked so many questions by so like everybody, because it's like now I'm I'm the local representative of the post office. Yeah. It is what it is. That's how this this live stream and this podcast works sometimes, Andy. We can title this. We can title this "Going Postal." Yeah, yeah, and here are my recommendations. If you are going to do a mail-in vote, here are my recommendations. Don't hand your ballot to somebody that you don't know that's saying like, oh, they're a poller or whatever. Don't hand your mail to anybody that's not a mail carrier for one. And you guys know you know for the most part, especially like if you've lived in a neighborhood for a while, you know your mail carrier. It's usually the same person every day. Um, if you can go into the post office and hand in your ballot physically to one of the mail clerks, because it's not going to get lost in there. And yeah, I mean those are some of the or and don't if you're gonna try to if you're just gonna drop it off in the box, do it before 4 o'clock. Do it during the middle of the day, where your mail's not gonna get stolen out of a box. It's gonna get collected by the post office. I would recommend going to one of the not one that's too big, not one that's too small. Like one of your, kind of like the Chatsworth Post Office. I'm biased, but our Chatsworth Post Office. We're constantly going out to that box and bringing in the mail to get it sent out on the truck. We're trying to get out as much mail as possible throughout the day. So, like I said, by 4 o'clock, get your mail in. Don't wait till the last second so that and give it a if you're pushing, I would say give it about a week. You want, especially now with the virus thing, we are experiencing delays. So so other than the express mail, add a day. So if it's normally priority is 2 to 3 days, I would say give it about 4 days. First class mail is 4 to 5 days. Maybe give it 6. And so I said give it about a week. For those ballots to get in. Don't wait till the last second because your ballot might not get counted on time. Yeah, and no, see that here I'm going to disagree with that because with the mail-in, yeah, I would say with the mail-in ballots, you'd want to have them, postmarked like I would say like a week to like 6 days before the election, because it's going to take a little bit of time for them to reach the like the balloting office or wherever the fuck it's going to be counted, because obviously like a lot of the numbers that we're seeing on the news, concerning election stuff, that's that's the stuff that's being counted. That's day of election, in-person voting that's being counted. Along with maybe the ballots that have that were turned in early, like as far as the mail-in balloting that was done like a month in it. People who do it as soon as they get it, they're yeah, people like some people who really give a damn. They're doing it like right as they get it, and then they mail it off right away. But there's people that are still like handing in their ballots, on election day. It's like, are you stupid? Your stuff's not gonna get your stuff's not gonna get counted. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Is like you got to get that stuff in early. That's the whole point of the mail-in balloting, is people who can't, they know they can't, or they don't want to, or they're not unable to make it in on election day to go vote, so they turn in their ballot early. It's early for a reason. That's why it comes to you like a month before the election. Ah, fuck it, Biden. It's like it's, I flipped a coin. It's like no, come on, like it's especially nowadays. Like, God, I mean, the politics is infused every aspect of our life. Unfortunately, it's like so. It's yeah, yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah, yeah. And I would say like even like and then even then like if because we're gonna be receiving millions of ballots. I mean it's and yeah, I mean it's like maybe even like 2 weeks, honestly, like but like yeah, definitely a week before the election day. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, yeah. No. Well, for one, it's like which is mail fraud. It's mail fraud and it's voter fraud, which is a federal crime. But and it's like where you get like these. It's funny where you get like people that were they've been dead since the Coolidge administration, but they're still voting, and it's like we haven't had our voter registration. The voter registry needs to be cleaned up big time because there's a lot of yeah, like I said, because I'm not completely against mail-in balloting, but it should not be the only. Same here, but I did it right away. I did it right away. I didn't wait till the last second. But yeah, it's just I just hate that like the post office is being used as a cudgel or as a scapegoat, and it's yeah, and it's I hate us being the we're the soup du jour of the day, that the political soup du jour. Um, we're not the problem or solution to everyone's problem. No, no, don't. The, uh, the only reason like now people are talking about the post office is because of the new postmaster general, and it was Trump's selection to help kind of uh, make the post office a little bit more streamlined or efficient. But that's wrong. So we all now, because Trump is doing something to the post office, we have to we're for the post office because Trump is against it. It's like no, he's not. He's not against it. He's, if anything, he's for it. He wants us to exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, and that's why like I'm not even like I'm not worried at all. Yeah, it's so rabbit season. Daffy Duck. Like his duck bill's all gone and like it's all blackened. That's what's honestly that is a great symbol of our political system right now. It is that Looney Tune short. Yeah, yeah, and now it's yeah, Yeah, but yeah. Well, I didn't expect to go on a rant about the post office, but well, here we are. Very topical. I mean, it was not the news story that I was thinking of, but you know what? Honestly, I think it's a good one to talk about. What a shit show! God, everything they do is so cringy. Well, they waited to the last possible second for that. I'll be honest. I will say I. Oh yeah. Well, I will say I am surprised a little bit because I thought it was either going to be Susan Rice or what's her Stacey Abrams, the loser governor, or yeah, that thinks that she won that she won. Yeah. And honestly, like one of the because what was it a number of weeks ago? Trump was talking about like how he just threw that out on Twitter about like how maybe we should postpone the election, and it rallied the entire all the Democrats saying like, no, Mr. Trump, we are gonna have our election on November 3rd, and it's like okay, it's like that's probably honestly that's probably what he wants. Yeah, it really feels like that. It's like he's not like people think he's dumb that he just I mean he does tweet out some interesting things. I'm like, okay, that's kind of curious. I don't know if I agree with that, but then there's other things where it's like he's not an idiot. You don't just it can't be both. I honestly think that like you don't just become president on your first try ever in public office. So the man's not an idiot. Yeah, and like I said, I think there's certain things, not everything, but I think there's certain things that he throws out there on Twitter or where people see them, or that he says, in his public addresses. He knows what he's saying, and he knows. And okay, you got it. November 3rd. No, it's duck season. It is exactly. Well, why don't we get into some more fun topics, Andy? Why don't we? What else we got on the docket today for the fans? Oh yeah, sounds good to me. Let's do this thing. Yep. They told him he was gone. And if Jordan had said if like, well, Phil Jackson's not here, I don't want to play here. Scottie Pippen was underpaid and like was kind of him and the but he was having problems with the yeah. Yep. He really is. Yo, and yeah, 'cause honestly, he was not treated very well by Jerry Krause. Um, and but the fact that he was Phil Jackson showed himself to be the bigger man in that situation, where a lot of guys where it's like oh, the owner is going around his general manager, which sometimes happens in sports. And it's like no hard feelings, but the owner is the owner. Like he's the one that's paying the general manager, so he technically has the final say. Yeah. So he could do that if he wanted to, but Phil Jackson had a lot of respect and integrity and said, "No, I'm just gonna, that's what Jerry Cross wants. Then that's fine. I'm gonna abide by that. That's fine with me." And he did. He lived up to that. That's a. I already really Phil Jackson had a lot of weird. His personal life was a little odd. Not my cup of tea, but when it came to stuff like this, he really is a man of integrity. He's a big yeah. Um, but speaking of like, since we're going into the the last two episodes, and it deals with like kind of like the last two championships, which went against or ended up having to face the Utah Jazz, and in '97 a lot of it was the famous flu game. We've seen the Gatorade commercials. We've heard like, wow, what toughness. He was sick. he went through, what he went through to persevere, which is all true, because Jordan, you know, by all normal people would have just like, fuck this, I'm out. Like I cannot play this game, but he didn't do that. But what it turns out is something that I didn't know, that I think was revealed throughout this documentary, is that he was uh, given a bad pizza, possibly on purpose, and it was food poisoning that nearly took him out of that deciding game in the finals against the Jazz in '97. And he torched them. Jordan torched them. That's the thing that. That's the amazing part where I'm like, my God, that's incredible. On his worst day, on his God, and see, this is what I love about guys like this in sports. Um, I constantly I kind of compare him with the other all-time greats in other sports. I mean, Wayne Gretzky, Dale Earnhardt. Like for one, there's so many. One memory that a few memories I have of him that kind of remind me of something like this. Back in 1996, uh, Dale Earnhardt got into a really bad wreck at Talladega Motor Speedway. He was flipped upside down, and before like a lot of the roll cage safety that was implemented, he was over on the side of his car, and he got smacked in the in his on the roof, and it caved in. He ended up breaking his sternum, his clavicle, and most people would just say like, okay, I'm gonna be out for a few weeks. I can't drive this car. Not well. Uh, One thing that's different about NASCAR is that if as long as you start that race, you take the green flag, and at some point like you get a relief driver that comes in later on, you still get the points for that day. So he showed up. He shows up the next week at Indianapolis. It's a Brickyard 400. It's one of the biggest races of the year. He takes the green flag, gets a relief driver, which is kills Earnhardt because it's like that's you when you watch his interview after he gets out of the car, it's like he's nearly in tears. Of like that's my life right there, and I'm he's just like he's distraught. The next week after that, where he goes to it's a road course, Watkins Glen. It's a very tough road course, very fast. You're shifting 16 times a lap, and and it's a lot of stress on the body. I mean, and he's essentially driving one-handed the entire time. He goes out on qualifying day to to set the lineup. He breaks the track record, wins the pole, and uh, when they interviewed him after setting the track record, it's like, Dale, how do you feel? It's like it hurts so good. It's like he's one-handed and he obliterated the field and the track record. And on race day, he led 3/4 of that race. He didn't end up winning because of pit strategy, but he could have won that race. He had the fastest car, and he was driving one-handed the entire day, and he was still better than the rest of the competition, if not for some pit strategy. He got out. His pit crew got outsmarted, but he was better than everyone else. Um, and that's what Jordan did in that deciding game in the '97 finals. He was he was on his worst day. He was better than all all of the Jazz. That's insane. I just that's got to be so demoralizing. Now it wasn't the Jazz that poisoned him, but like there was Jazz fans that probably a little weird. Yeah, they knew what was going on. Yeah, yeah. I'm saying it's intentional. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I would say so. Oh, I mean, it's like even because they interviewed MJ's kids, and they said like, yeah, our mom wouldn't let us go to Utah because it was really contentious down there. And rightfully so. I mean, it's like you don't want your team. Like, I mean, that's the closest the Jazz have ever been to a championship, and it's to get a championship. It was you had to go through Chicago. You had Jordan kept saying that like you had to go through us to win this championship, no matter what. Um, and yeah, so I thought that was like that was because we always heard it was the flu game and like how Jordan just battled it out, but it's like it's the story is so much more intriguing because like they they tried to sabotage the guy and he still kicked their ass. Yeah, I mean, he even said it's like, oh god, it's like he didn't know how he was gonna play. It's like, and he told Phil Jackson's like, I mean, I got to at least go out there as a decoy or something, and they torched him. It's like he gets out there and it's that adrenaline that that drive to want to be the wanted attitude that put them over the hump, and it's incredible because there's times where I normal people don't have that drive. Normal people just like they would want to be like, "Fuck, I'm sick, dude. I can't do it." No, they're no. I just because I look at like the guys that go above and beyond. Like they're hurt. They're honestly they have no business being on like the racetrack, the court or wherever. when you look at like Kirk Gibson in the '88 World Series, the guy was on like one knee, barely, and he hit a home run to win Game One, and pretty much vaulted the Dodgers to win the World Series. He never played another game after that, but like he essentially went on one knee and and beat the A's. You get Jordan in this game when he's, I mean, essentially poisoned and torches them. You get Dale Earnhardt on so many different occasions: broken leg, broken sternum, broken clavicle, uh, or even in like I have so many NASCAR stories where like Ricky Rudd, uh, back in the early '80s, got into a horrible crash in the Daytona qualifying races, and because he to start the Daytona 500, he couldn't keep his eyes open, so he duct taped his eyes open so he could run that race. That's insane. Nobody does that stuff today. Even the modern NASCAR drivers, like I mean, there's been a couple of guys that it's now I will say it's been forced because of the restrictions that the sanctioning body and everything has put on. There's been a couple guys that have been out on COVID forced stuff, but even I'll say even like a couple of years ago, like now because there's a lot of medical waivers where some guys like they just can't race, um, and honestly, it's probably for the best. But back in the day, it's like if you you know didn't come to a race, it's the mentality. It's like I'm gonna lose this ride. I have to be in the race car. I can't just give it up. Um, and right, right. So that was something that was very revelatory in the Last Dance. Is just that was awesome. It makes me like Jordan even more. Yeah. Um, there was the whole they talked a lot about Steve Kerr, um, and it, yeah, that was kind of interesting. Like the connection. Well, even though those two never talked about it, the connection that they had with both their dads being murdered. Um, I think that, and even though like obviously Steve Kerr's he was no Michael Jordan, um, but I think Steve Kerr also but he had the drive. He was like, listen, like I'm a role. He knew his role. I'm a role player, and I'm gonna work as hard as I can to be there in the moment when Michael needs me. I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna step up. And sometimes like if he's not gonna win a championship on his own, but he's a good yeah, he's a good backup. And just learning that story was like, wow, I have a lot more respect for Steve Kerr. Because he said a lot of dumb shit like the last few years. As the head coach of the Warriors. I definitely, obviously, there's a lot of the players and teams. A lot of the shit that they've talked about with like Hong Kong and all the shit that's come out the last couple seasons. Um, and like they're ponying up to China, but yeah, pretty much. That's that kind of frustrates me. But it's I still have a lot more respect for him than I did. I kind of understand the way that he is, based off of how he grew up and some of the stuff that like his dad was trying to do, and so. But honestly, like he's an interesting guy. Um, Dealt with a lot of tragedy and dealt with a lot, and basketball was his way to work through it. So definitely a lot of respect for him. But yeah, it's just the um, how that, and this is kind of going into the last episode too, because a lot of it was them facing the Jazz, and they were put up against the brink with the Jazz. The Jazz were a very they were probably tougher in '98 than they were in '97, and kind of like the what was it, the year before? I think it was the year before '97. The driving factor for Jordan. He's always looking for those little things to kind of get him fired up to, like, okay, it was Karl Malone being named MVP. It's like, you think he's better than me? Well, I'm going to show you. Um, yeah, and then '98 is more about like, okay, well, we're the only team that's three-peated. We're going to do it again, and um, there's that drive. It's like it's the last time that they're going to be together, and it's just the seeing that playoff run of like how it was challenging, and you could see, like, Jordan's tired, but it's that despite the physical and mental fatigue, he still finds an he nearly played the entire game. He probably played, what, like, I think he was out of the game for like 10 minutes total, and Scottie Pippen was coming in and out, and which says a lot about him too, because he, like, people are saying like, oh, it's not because he was weak. The guy, like, the trainers were all saying is like, normal people would not play with this. It's like the guy's back was like fucked up, and it started from like like the first minute, and he felt it like from like that, like from moment one when he like made that initial dunk. And he's like, oh fuck, my back is just, yeah, and it was probably like a really bad back compression too. I don't think it was a muscle problem. I think it was like he fucked up his spine, and the guy was still like trying. He even like scored. I think he scored like double-digit points in that game too. But Jordan had to carry the load in that game, because if if it had to go another game, more than likely, Pippen's out, and Jordan is probably like so gassed at that point. It's like, what, it's like they probably would have lost. They had to win that game. Yeah, that was game six, because yeah, and to me, I think they had to win that game, because if they gave it their all like they did and lost, oh, that would have given the Jazz such a huge momentum boost. Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, this was just such a this whole documentary series. I mean, obviously, like I've been saying it since we started episode one. It's like this is my favorite era of basketball, and the to me it was like it was the the my favorite era is the '80s, the '90s, and the early 2000s, and the Bulls played a huge part of that, because they were the team of the '90s. Um, Up until, like, and it's the Lakers were kind of the the '80s. the Kobe and Shaq era in the early 2000s. Um, and yeah, it's just such a great, so many great personalities in basketball. On like every team had like their great personalities, and I learned a lot. Not only about Jordan, but I learned a lot about Pippen, Dennis Rodman, Phil Jackson, and a lot of those great moments that we remember from the '90s. Getting more insight into what was actually going on, um, how shitty like the sports media was, to how awful they were to Michael Jordan. Yeah, yeah. How they treated Michael Jordan was a travesty. Well, the fact that they said that he. Oh yeah, that's yeah. What Yeah, or like, and then when he did like go venture into baseball, and the guy worked hard at it, and that Sports Illustrated writer who never even talked to Jordan once about like his intentions and like, and pretty much like ripped him a new one about how he's ruining baseball, and never once like actually interviewed Jordan, and it's like wow, and it's like you don't even know anything about him. Yeah, yeah, and it's just yeah, so like I said, a lot of very interesting stories, a lot of interesting revelations, kind of revealing some of the truths that we may have like either forgotten about or didn't know. And over honestly, like this is, if you're looking for a sport, if you're if you're a basketball fan, B, if you're a sports fan, and if you like sports documentaries, you know, and you haven't seen The Last Dance, uh, stop what you're doing, go and watch it. It's 10 hours, worth it. It's essentially the whole thing is 10 hours. It's I watched it in about a day. It was worth it. I regret nothing. I rewatch it week by week. Yeah, but honestly, like I think we're gonna give our rating on it. Like we usually give one out of 5 stars. Honestly, for me, this is 10 stars. That's how much I love this documentary. Yeah, and honestly, like it made me kind of like want to play like some of the older kind of get back in more of like playing some like the basketball games, but playing more with because a lot of you can play with like old legends and stuff. I kind of want to go back and kind of play with like the old like '90s Bulls and the '80s Detroit Pistons, the Showtime Lakers. Um, Go back and play with the players of the past and or go back and watch those old highlights and stuff. It's just it's I've been sports has kind of sucked, especially this year. A lot of the things that I had enjoyed about sports that I could it was my escape, and a lot of that's been ruined. But to go back to the past, to the era that I loved the most in sports, um, and just kind of relive it all, made me feel a lot better. This is kind of like a soothing moment to watch all this. You don't like chocolate chip? Are you a racist? Yeah. No, it's terrible. They try to do the same because I had a friend over yesterday, and he was wanting to watch the Lakers game. And initially, when they're like sharing out saying talking about the saying who's in the line starting lineup, they're pumping in crowd noise. It's like they're playing in a high school stadium with nobody there. Yeah, go watch The Last Dance. Relive basketball in its glory days. Yeah. It's not hype. We we if you're like I said, if you're a sports fan, if you love basketball, if you like sports, this is the documentary for you. Yeah, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about it too, and your love for sports in that era. Us old men. Oh, trust me, I've been watching like old NASCAR races, and when certain drivers take the lead, and you can hear the crowd, like the crowd noise, is over. You hear that over the cars. That's like I miss that so bad. Fuck that. You gave up. Okay. Yeah. You gave up. Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Axon Jackson. Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I love this movie. It's up there like as far as like one of my favorite action movies. It's fun. Yeah. And it's funny because there's characters from the from last week's film and the two films we're talking about today. It's like there's connections from like characters like because Action Jackson stars Carl Weathers, who is in our previous installment of Nocturnal Transmissions. He was one of the characters in Predator. Yeah. Then you have there's a character in Action. Yeah, that's right. He was. That's right. He was in there. You also had another side character in Action Jackson, the former boxer, who also was in Roadhouse. So, it was funny because when I was watching Action Jackson, I was like, and I love the name of the captain. It was like it was Captain like Armbender or something, something like crazy, like or yeah, Armbuster. And I was like, who? I know this guy from somewhere, and I couldn't place it. And then I looked at like who was it, like, oh shit, that's right, he was the one of the guys from Predator. Yeah, yeah. Why don't we give the synopsis of Action Jackson real quick, and then we'll do a quick talk about it. This is if you're looking for a fun movie that does not give a shit, Action Jackson is your movie. Um, yeah, yeah, it was, and it has it's like those are it was Carl Weathers, Vanity, who plays the singer, is Sydney, Sharon Stone, who is Delaplane's wife, and Craig T. Nelson as Delaplane. uh, Coach. That's right. Yeah, I keep forgetting that he voiced Mr. Incredible. Um, it's very odd. Well, yeah, I kept, it's funny because I kept thinking it's like, because this is set in Detroit, and I kept thinking it's like, was he in RoboCop too? Like, is this the same universe as RoboCop? It's like, and it kind of had that feel to it a little bit, if you think about it. Yeah. Um, but yeah, what I'll say about this movie is, listen, it's not necessarily like super. Um, there's not a ton of plot per se. Like, it's a pretty straightforward story. It's nothing like, there's a lot of like, we're given a little bit of somewhat of a backstory of Jericho Jackson. He got a little ambitious in his arrest of um, Delaplane's son, who was a rapist or whatever. Right, but then he ended up losing his wife because of it. He ended up being demoted, and he's kind of essentially trying to prove himself again. And that's kind of like where we're left off. We're left in a but the legend of Action Jackson, lives on, and people, he's kind of like, the people use him as like the boogeyman to scare, like, young criminals and stuff. And it's like, oh, you're gonna have to deal with Action Jackson. Yeah. Yeah. One by if. Sergeant Jackson. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, it was great. Great. That was a great opening sequence. Um, and this had to have been like, around the time that he was filming the Rocky movies, because Carl Weathers was jacked. uh, but no, the it was, it's like I said, it gives you enough, like I said, it gives you like a little bit of his story. He has a lot of trouble with the captain in in that department, or the lieutenant. Sorry, the lieutenant in that department, and uh, was it the captain? He was a lieutenant. That's right. Yeah, he used to be Lieutenant Action Jackson. Yeah. And he kind of still has a lot of uh, hatred for the Delaplanes, because he's obviously a little bit bitter that, like, about the son that he arrested, but he knows that the father is still up to no good, and there, a lot of the things that we initially some assassinations, we're not really sure exactly what's going on, but Action Jackson, that it's Delaplane eliminating the competition for him to acquire power through the Union. And so it's, by the way, that's Fierro. Yeah, yeah. And that's pretty much the premise of the story. And he's you know Jericho Action Jackson is framed. Uh, I just love saying that name, Action Jackson. It's fun. Yeah, and he's framed for the murder of Delaplane's wife, um, wife, and so he is essentially trying to prove his innocence at the same time proving the guilt of Delaplane. And yeah, it's just like you get it's um, a lot of great one-liners, a lot of great jokes, just over the top crazy action, and it's like a one man wrecking machine. It's kind of like a little bit like Lethal Weapon, but without it's like Riggs and Murtaugh combined in person. Yeah, because because Action Jackson is not he's not an unstable crazy person that just is like a wrecking ball. It's just yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's when the action part comes out. Um, but no, it's such a great movie. I didn't know what to expect from this. I was like, what the hell is this movie? I didn't know that Carl Weathers was an action hero in a movie, and I didn't know what to expect. And I found that, like, not only did I love this movie, but I wanted more because it left it open for like so much more for there to be, and that's not what we got, unfortunately. Yeah, And unfortunately, that's not what we got. But man, what a movie! I was certainly this exceeded my wildest expectations that I had for this movie. The fact Craig T. Nelson is some like martial artist like bad guy. Despite him, he's like um, a, a car kingpin, uh, an auto union kingpin that knows like kung fu. You got Carl Weathers is Action Jackson going against him, and just all these like crazy characters. Um, just such a fun movie. If you're Yeah, it's not gratuitous. Just a little bit classy, classy. I I remember like my wife. I was like, oh look, because I was watching it. Like she was kind of like watching it like out of the corner of her eye. I was like, and she sometimes enjoys nudity in films, so it's like oh look boobies. But yeah, no, it was tits. Well, she's known for showing her doodads. Yeah, but yeah, yep, yeah. Now I remember her. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, she was. But yeah, no, this is a great movie. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It's just good, simple, crazy '80s fun action. It, yep. Yeah, I mean it's funny because you think about it. It's like that's such a similar line to like our last movie, Predator. Yeah. So connections. There's a lot of connections. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into we'll give our reviews at the end, but let's our ratings. But let's talk about Roadhouse a little bit. Film, kind of like Predator, sounds so fucking retarded, but the movie is so good at the same time. I mean, it just I mean, you can't go wrong with like Sam Elliott, being in the film. Yeah, in this one, Patrick Swayze is kind of like he's a very subtle machismo guy. Um, um, but yeah, I don't even know where to start with this movie. Like, where do you think? What do you want to talk about about this film that like really interested you, Andy? And just turning in these, but it's like this like secret society of like these coolers that go on these adventures and like turn bars around, and it's just like what it's such a weird premise because it's like, and because you have Wade Garrett. Yeah. It is, yeah. Okay, that's a great way of putting this. Yeah. um I don't know, like this is kind of like similar to like Action Jackson. It's kind of like a, not necessarily like a complicated or strenuous plot. Like you're not going to be using a ton of brain cells or like trying to figure out fan theories about it. But it's just this like kind of like good fun, kind of like manly movie. Be nice until it's time not to be nice. Well, and even like because there is a time like later in the movie where he does kind of lose his cool in a moment where he like rips a guy's throat out. And yeah. Right. Right. Yeah, and we do witness that. It's like, oh, well, he did that. Um, but even then, it's like you kind of like that's not like the manly thing about it. I mean, it's cool, but that's not the point of the movie. It's more of it's him being subdued in a chaotic situation. That's cool. It- he's like a yeah. He's a yeah. He's a holstered gun, where it's like it's like it's dangerous, but like it's not gonna like kill you by being in the holster. Your power. Everyone knows your power, but you're not showing it. You're not blasting away. Yeah. Right. Right. Yep. Protect all the businesses and stuff like that. Uh, yeah, but no, this is a this is another fun '80s movie. Fun '80s machismo film. If you like a lot of there's fighting in the movie. There's a lot of that. And a lot of cool characters. If you like Sam Elliott, like he's in there. Patrick Swayze, I think at his height. Because this is like the era he was doing like Ghost. He was doing all these other like great films from the '80s. Yeah, the thing is, I always mix up Footloose and Dirty Dancing. But yeah, but no, it's a good film. I had actually never watched it before, so this is it's kind of it's very rare. I know. I don't know why I never watched. So the last three movies I've actually never watched before. I know. I've never watched these movies before, so I was um I was definitely this is a fun month. I should let you choose more often. Anything else from Roadhouse that you want to talk about, Andy? Yeah. It's kind of it's a little bit like honestly, I see. I kind of see this as a is like a little bit of a maybe it was inspired by this, but it has a little bit of like Yojimbo and Fistful of Dollars. Yeah, yeah, but right, yep, yeah, yeah. So it's like I said, it has a touching moment, and the town is finally the town all kind of comes together and kind of eliminates Brad Wesley as an extortionist. Like they eliminate him as a problem together, and yeah, yeah, I love it, dude. I watched like yeah, it was. Well, all right. Well, let's give our ratings on the two films. Okay, I was gonna, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna disagree slightly. I'm gonna give it a 3.5. Just because it exceeded my expectations. Because I thought it was like, Action Jackson, this looks stupid, and it wasn't. It was not stupid. It was awesome, and I want there to be like a whole series of movies. Like Jason Bourne has like in Mission Impossible, they have like 6 or 7 movies. I want like 7 Action Jackson films. Yeah, dude, he does. Yeah, he does. Oh, dude, I would love that. Um, this to me is better than Luke Cage, and I really liked Luke Cage. Yeah, like it. like a weathered action Jackson. Oh, I'd love that. Yeah, I'm getting too old for this shit. Um, um, yeah. For Roadhouse, Roadhouse, I'm gonna give another. I'm gonna give a 3.5 as well. Um, just because, like, once again, it's like it's a premise that sounds so stupid, but it's still really good. Um, I liked anything with Sam Elliott. Like, I want more just because I love Sam Elliott. Um, yeah, because this was before like yeah, because this was before like Tombstone and Big Lebowski and a lot of the stuff that we know him as. Um, but yeah, no, it's like I said, the story's good, the characters are good, and it's you know I would never have thought about like comparing Roadhouse to Yojimbo, but here it is. I mean, it's a very apt comparison. Ooh, you're going even like yeah, you're going really specific. Yeah, it's not quite there. Yeah, yeah. I think okay. I like it. I mean, it's like I like the movies you've chosen this one because I watched them all. So like and me, I love our next week's film. I love it. That's one of my favorites. Um, but yeah, this has been a fun month, dude. I'm stoked. Yeah, you have East versus West, and we did. I think you got November too. Yeah. You did. I don't remember at the moment, but I wrote it down. So next 2 months are like our next 2 months are like are my creation. So we'll fucking watch them. Yeah. Yeah. Last week I was telling everybody about these movies. I was telling everybody about these movies last week. It's like you got to watch them. Oh yeah, check it out. Like us, subscribe to us. Yeah, yeah. Smash the like button, subscribe, comment, do all that fun stuff. We want to hear from you. We want you to look at our stuff. Sounds like a plan to me.